friends, and welcome to class. For today's flow, there are no props explicitly required, but based on your body and how you typically like to move, if you do like to have a blanket or maybe even a strap nearby to make things more accessible, please go ahead and grab those items. Otherwise, all you need is your mat. And we're going to go ahead and start in an easy seat. And so with that, if you do like to have a little bit of a lift underneath your sit bones, that would be a good time to grab either a blanket or a bolster, a nice soft little cushioning, little lift for your sit bones as you come into that cross-legged position. And whichever leg is out in front, just go ahead and start wherever feels natural for you. And then go ahead, shift your weight, go ahead and get on top of those sit bones so you can find a nice tall seat. And from that nice and anchored sitting position, finding a nice tall spine, as tall as you can muster up, coming onto your mat first thing. Go ahead and allow the shoulders to rest away from the ears. And hands can be wherever they choose to fall. Finding your breath, you can keep your gaze nice and soft, or you can close your eyes if that's a space that you feel comfortable moving into. And find some nice, slow, deep breaths. And once you feel nice and grounded, rooted down onto your mat, with that tall spine, slowly start to walk those hands out in front of you, keeping that spine nice and long, trying to hinge at the hips. Feel free to place the forearms down. If you're able to move into a space that brings you a little bit closer to the earth, working toward keeping that anchoring through the sit bones so that we can open up through the outer edges of the hips. The back line of the hips, finding a nice long spine in this forward fold. Feel free to shift your weight side to side. Maybe even using a gentle press through the palms to anchor those sit bones down toward the earth. And just feeling a nice folding sensation here. And slowly start to walk the hands back up and in toward you. Find a tall spine. And then bring those hands back behind you, uncross the legs. Feel free to shimmy them out if that feels good. And then go ahead and find the opposite leg in front. Reintegrate with that with your seat. Coming back to that connection of the sit bones onto your mat. Tall spine once more. And then slowly, keeping a nice long line of energy, slowly start to fold forward. Gentle press of the outer lining of the legs down toward the earth. Finding that fold at the hips. And supporting yourself through your forearms. If you find yourself a little bit lifted, you can always use blocks underneath the hands. Moving into your depth. And slowly start to walk the hands back in toward you. Hands come back behind the hips, rock backward to uncross the legs. And go ahead and extend those legs right out in front of you. Bring them a little bit wider than the mat. So not quite a wide-legged or middle splits position, if you will, and not quite that long seat. So find a nice little happy medium. Again, you can always have a blanket underneath your seat. Go ahead and find a nice tall spine, and then slowly start to fold forward. Maybe even grabbing hold of the ankles, the shins, the the big toes. Or maybe just walking your hands out in front of you. Whatever space feels good. But keeping that length through the body. Working in through the back line of the legs, the back of the hips. Maybe even into the low back. Finding that fold. Keeping the legs straight-ish. Finding your breath, maybe sinking into this space a little bit deeper with every round. And then slowly release. Go ahead and walk the hands back up. And then rock that weight or shift that weight back just enough to free up that right leg to bring the sole of the right foot into the left inner thigh. Squaring over top that left leg. Inhale, reach long and tall, and then exhale, slowly start to fold over that left leg. Walking the hands alongside your body. Maybe even shift your weight a little bit, left to right, to free up that soft tissue underneath you so you can feel that anchoring of the left sit bone down onto your mat. And trying to keep the back line of that leg nice and long. So you're almost reaching those left toes toward you and you're kicking that left heel out and away. Getting a little bit more length behind the knee. And even with that anchoring of the sit bones, you're still reaching the tailbone back behind you. So you're making that left leg as long as you feel like you can, using those efforts from each pull. And again, your hands can be on the earth, or you can grab hold somewhere on that left leg if that feels good. Here for another breath. And then slowly walk those hands back up toward you. Find that tall seat. Shift that weight back once more. Free up the right leg. Extend it long beyond the right edge of the mat. And then bring that left foot in. Sole of the foot meets the inner lining of the opposite leg. Nice and tall. Soft turn of the torso to come over top that right leg. Nice and tall. And then forward fold. Walking those hands nice and slow alongside that right leg. You can just walk your hands alongside the leg or use the leg itself to create a connection that allows you to move deeper into a space you still can control, but would like a little bit more effort. Heel tries to reach away from you as those toes reach toward you, pressing the knee down in toward the earth. And then reaching that tailbone nice and long, really feel that long line of energy both behind the leg and maybe into the lowest part of the back. Breathe here. Just realize my hold on my right leg can look a little awkward, but wherever you feel like you need to be to both keep that spine nice and long and also trying to keep that chest squared over top that right leg. And so just where my hands are allowing both of those things to occur. Nice and slow, release wherever you held on and slowly walk those hands back toward you to sit up nice and tall. Rock back, free up that left leg just to shake them out for a moment or two. And then go ahead and bring both legs in toward one another so both the soles of the feet are touching one another. And then go ahead and grab hold of the pinky edge of the feet. Nice and tall, proud across the chest, collarbone spread nice and wide. And then driving the outer lining of the legs toward the earth to open up through the hips. And then using that connection to exhale, nice and slowly folding forward, elbows coming toward the inside edge of those legs. As you reach the crown of the head toward the top of the mat, gaze is down so that the back line of your neck is staying nice and long. letting each inhale and exhale take you a little bit deeper into this space, but not forcing any particular depth. Just explore what your body is calling for here in this moment. On your next inhale, slowly release back up to a seat. And then bring the soles of the feet toward the earth, legs parallel to one another. Give those legs a hug. Sit up nice and tall, sitting right on top of those sit bones. Feeling that connection, thighs to belly. And then nice and slow, rearrange yourself on your mat as you need. Go ahead and hook the back side of those legs as you slowly roll down onto your back. And then go ahead and extend those legs out nice and long. Wiggle them out. Bounce those knees up and down. And then with that right leg first, go ahead and bring that right knee in toward the chest. Go ahead and lace the fingers just below that right knee. And then hug that leg in alongside the body or right into the chest. Again, explore what space feels good for you. And if it's challenging for you to bring that knee that close in towards your body without lifting the chest and the neck up or allowing it to feel good, if you feel like you're reaching and it's very effortful, feel free to grab a strap to loop behind the thigh so it makes it a little bit easier to bring that knee in toward the chest. From here, go ahead and guide that right knee across the body over toward the left side. Finding a nice supine twist here. Right arm comes into a capital T. And just allowing that left hand to guide the knee over and across the body. Feeling a nice opening within the low back. Maybe a nice stretch within the outer hip. And then come back in towards center. Go ahead and grab behind the right knee. Let the lower leg just dangle down for a moment. So you're keeping that knee at a 90-degree angle. And then we're going to work into the back line of the leg with a little bit more activation. So from here, on the inhale, you prepare. And on the exhale, you drive that heel toward the sky, straightening-ish toward that right leg. Inhale, lower. Exhale, drive the heel toward the sky. Inhale, lower. Exhale, drive. Inhale, lower. Exhale, drive. And then hold it here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, at this point, if you do have a strap, you're always welcome to loop that along around the bottom or loop that around your foot to kind of extend the length of your arms if grabbing hold of the big toe is something that is a little far-reaching for you here in this moment. Wherever you are able to move to, we're going to open that right leg over toward the right side, working in toward the inner thigh of that right leg. And as that right leg opens, we want to try to keep that left hip anchored as best we can and trying not to let our whole body roll over toward that right side. And here's where a strap can be really helpful, so you don't feel like you're straining to maintain that grasp. It makes it a little bit more accessible, gives an extra few inches to that arm to make that connection happen. But if you feel a little bit more limited in this space, you can always grab hold behind or on the outside of that right knee and just guide that right leg open as much as you're able. On the exhale, go ahead and bring that right leg back in towards center. Go ahead and bend that left knee so the foot is flat down onto the earth. And go ahead and guide that right ankle across the left thigh, coming into a reclined pigeon pose. Keeping that right knee nice and open toward the top of the mat. Feel free to stay here or go ahead and grab hold of the left shin as you bring your shape in towards your body. And as you hug everything in, you're still trying to keep that tailbone nice and long. Keeping that right knee nice and open to just explore the depth within this hip opener. Working deep into the hip socket. And just breathing into that space. Keep reaching that right hip crease toward the top right corner of the mat. And the idea is to keep this very closed off shape as open as you can to explore the depth that exists within your mobility in this space. On your next breath, go ahead and drop the sole of the left foot down toward the earth. And then keeping this shape, you're going to allow everything to fall over nice and slow to the left side of the room. So keeping that right ankle hooked on top of that left thigh, everything falls over toward the left. The sole of the right foot comes down onto the earth. The right knee is facing up toward the sky. Keeping that drive so that you're open through that hip. And you feel free to hold onto that right ankle so you can maintain the shape that you have. And just allow your arms to rest wherever you feel comfortable, wherever they naturally just go to. You can keep that capital T. Sometimes I just like to rest my hand on my belly to keep the focus inward on the sensations that my body's experiencing. Now on the next breath in, come back through center, unravel the legs, and extend them nice and long. Feel free to take a big stretch, reaching those arms up and overhead, if that's something that's calling for you here in this moment. Before we go ahead and switch sides. So go ahead and bring that left knee in toward the chest, grab hold just below that left knee, give it a nice squeeze. And if this shape ever feels big, feel free to bend that right knee. So you can work into that left leg a little bit more. But if keeping that right leg is extended, go ahead and stay there. Breathing into that connection between the left thigh and the belly. And again, always welcome to, so you can modify by bringing that right foot back to the earth, so bending that right knee, or you can always grab a strap. So those are two options to make this position a little bit more accessible. And then from here, grab hold of that knee with the right hand and find a gentle twist. Keeping that left arm into a capital T. Gently guiding that left knee over toward the right side. Feeling that opening within the left hip, the low back. Keeping that left shoulder anchored down. Then go ahead, bring that knee back towards center, coming back onto your back. Grab hold behind that left knee, let the lower part of the leg just angle down. Keeping that hip supported in a 90-degree position. Again, always welcome to use a strap to make that joint angle a little bit more accessible. And maybe it's not a matter of mobility or flexibility, if you will, but just your proportions. Maybe those arms is just a little bit of a reach to bring yourself down into that space. Breath to prepare. Find that inhale. Exhale. Drive that knee toward the ceiling. Feel the space opening behind the knee. It's okay if it doesn't go to straight. Inhale, lower. Exhale, drive. Inhale, lower. Exhale, drive. Inhale, lower. Exhale, drive. Inhale, lower. Exhale, drive and hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And from here, go ahead and loop that strap around your foot. If that's something that makes this movement a little bit more accessible, you can always just guide the leg over with that left hand if that prop is not necessarily available to you in this moment. Otherwise, if you have the mobility to grab hold of that left big toe with your peace fingers, if you're able to keep your upper body relaxed here in this space, whatever hold feels good for you, use that to guide that left leg out and open, working toward the inner lining of that left leg. Letting gravity help guide you there, but still staying anchored and strong into that right side, so you're trying to maximize the sensation within the inner lining of that left leg. I ran out of real estate a little bit on my end, so I'm just propping my leg up onto the window, onto the door here, and it feels quite nice to have that support. So if you're by a wall, by all means, use that as your little prop here. On the next exhale, go ahead and bring that leg back towards center. Bend that right leg. Bring the left ankle across the right thigh. Find that figure 4. Settle back into your space, starting here, and then go ahead and stay here, or progress by bringing that right knee, in toward your chest. Grab and hold of that right shin. Staying as open as you're able in this more closed off space. And the ways to explore that are by imagining that you have your hand stuck inside your left hip crease, and it's being pulled and it's pushing that left hip ever so subtly toward the top left corner of the mat. So you're keeping not only that hip open by working through the hip itself, but also keeping that hip open by driving the outer edge of that left knee toward the top corner. You're keeping your hip open in that capacity as well. So both of those efforts are increasing the depth within this stretch. And don't be afraid to explore a little bit further with each and every breath. Not forcing, but knowing that with the use of your breath and with time, of course, that there becomes a little bit more availability in the positions that you explore. So give yourself the opportunity to move forward if that's available. On the next breath or so, go ahead and lower the right leg down toward the earth. Keep your shape here. Grab hold of that left ankle and then slowly guide your shape over toward the right. Keeping that left shoulder anchored down. Again, that hand can rest on your belly or it can come back into that capital T. Same as before, the goal or the mindset or the intention, I should say, is to keep that left hip as open as we are able to explore a little bit more depth. to really open through that left hip, that left side body. Allowing your breath to help you settle into the space. Then go ahead and inhale back towards center. Left foot comes back down to the earth, and then go ahead and bring both knees in toward the chest. Give yourself a nice good squeeze. And then from here, take a few rock and rolls up toward the top of your mat. We're going to find a forward fold. So however many it takes you to get there, or however many you want to take to get there, find a fold. And allow the knees to be soft at first, so that you can explore the sensation of the feet officially on the earth with a little weight through them. And as you find yourself spending more time here in this space, as you anchor down through the sole of the feet, as gravity helps encourage your torso down closer to the earth, can you feel the back line of the knees straighten a little bit further? Can you feel the hip points lift a little bit higher toward the sky? And don't be afraid of a little subtle weight shift forward and back, side to side. Whatever allows you to settle into this space. Complete and utter stillness isn't a requirement. Just take a few more breaths here. Really allowing the head to fall heavy, the spine to traction with the help of gravity, and with the effort of the lower body to give a nice lift. From here, keeping those fingertips down onto the earth. Again, blocks are always welcome if that feels far away. But you're going to slowly bend into that left knee, straighten more through that right leg. Left fingertips come down toward the earth. The right arm is going to reach up toward the sky. Finding a nice little twist here. Using that connection of the left hand down onto the ground to help give you a little bit of lightness and lift through the upper body. But explore the sensation within the back line or the outer lining of that right hip. Exhale nice and slow, find your fold. Straighten back through that left leg. Find a moment of symmetry. Bend through the right knee, left leg straightens as you twist over toward the left. Nice and slow, straighten back through that right leg. Find that fold. Inhale, find a halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Bend into those knees. Inhale, come to stand nice and slow. Press through the soles of those feet. As your hips come forward, straighten through those legs. Find a reach up through the fingertips. Nice and tall. Exhale. Hands come through heart center. Inhale, arms sweep up overhead. Exhale, hands come through heart center. Soft bend in the knees. Hinge at the hips, forward fold. As the hands plant, inhale, halfway lift. Hips reach back. Tailbone lifts up and back toward the sky. Can you find a nice long line of energy through the back line of the legs? Exhale, fold. From your fold, go ahead and wiggle those feet out a little bit wider. Maybe even open those toes out on an angle to leave yourself some room. On the exhale, go ahead and lower those hips down between your legs, finding a nice passive squat space or shape. And here, if coming into this depth feels like a bit much, we've been working through the hips and the legs, but not quite down to the point of the ankles per se. So if you feel a little stiff in that space, go ahead and grab that blanket that you were using earlier, sneak that underneath the heels. You're always welcome to fold back the mat as well. That will give you a little bit of a lift in that space. But feel free to rock your weight left to right. Bringing those hands to heart center, knees come inside, or elbows come inside the knees. To keep the hips nice and open, that might be a nice little added sensation there. And just explore your depth where you feel comfortable. Adjust your feet as you need. And then slowly start to settle in your space, in your center. And from here, we're going to, again, explore some mobility within the back line of the leg. So you can either grab hold of peace fingers to big toes, if that feels like a very tight-knit position. Always welcome to bring the fingertips down to the earth, grab a set of blocks, place your hands there. From here, we're going to exhale. Press through the soles of the feet, lift those hips up towards the sky. Feel that connection between belly and thighs as you find a forward fold. On the inhale, drop the hips, lift the chest, find that passive squat once more. Exhale, find the fold, hips lift up. Chest lowers down. Inhale, drop the hips. Lift the chest. Exhale, fold. And allow your feet to move where they need to be to allow this transition to happen. Inhale, lower the hips. Lift the chest. Exhale, fold. Inhale, lift. Exhale, fold. Hang out here in this fold. Keep that connection with the feet to draw yourself deeper. Really opening the chest, widening the collarbones as you draw it closer toward the earth, to the space between the inner arches, left to right. On your next breath, go ahead and release the grip that you had. Plant the hands. Go ahead and step the feet back one at a time. Pause into your high plank, and then soft bend in the knees. Lift those hips up and toward the sky, downward facing dog. And try to come right into stillness as you come into your downward facing dog. I feel like the intention or the first instinct is always to pedal out right away. Try to linger down the center of the shape, so you can explore the opening within the back line of the body, left to right. And find a few breaths here. Hinging at those hips, lifting that tailbone high up toward the sky. On your next inhale, right leg lifts up. Three-legged dog. On the exhale, soft bend in the left knee as you drive the right knee toward the right elbow. And then go ahead and drop the right foot over toward the left side, bringing that shin parallel toward the top of the mat, coming into your pigeon pose. And as we come into this quite big shape, again, all of those props that were mentioned earlier, the blocks, the blanket, the bolster maybe even, grab what you need, what you feel like your body requires in this moment to hang out in child's pose. Pigeon pose. Child's pose is coming, but pigeon pose first for a few breaths. So whether you need a little bit of support underneath that right thigh to square your hips off, maybe you feel pretty good in the hips, but you want to have a little bit of support underneath your hands, you can always use blocks for that space. But start by trying to explore a space where you're able to find a nice tall spine. Finding a nice space upright, a space where you can feel nice and supportive. You can feel that sensation within the right hip. A place where you feel like you can settle. And once you find comfort here, feel free to stay here. Or, keeping that nice tall spine, maybe start to hinge forward over top that right thigh or right shin. Keep drawing. If you do find that folded position, keep drawing that right hip crease back in space. Bringing that left hip point down. And see how that changes the sensation deep within that right hip joint. I'm propped up on my forearms. You can always, if you wanted to, grab a block to rest your forehead down onto the block. If you had the capacity to come all the way down onto the backs of your hands. And just knowing that a certain depth is not required of you in this moment. I want you to be more intuitive, more mindful about where you are at in space. And even if you aren't exploring a depth that's as expansive as you've done in the past, are you able to make subtle adjustments to explore a new sensation? Two more breaths. If you were in a folded position, go ahead and walk your hands back up. Plant the hands, tuck the back toes, lift the right leg up and back behind you. Come into that three-legged dog. Drop into that left heel. Exhale, lower that right leg down. Settle down the middle of your shape. And then inhale, left leg lifts high up and toward the sky. On the exhale, soft bend in the right knee as you drive the left knee forward. Make that connection to the left elbow, and then bring that right ankle over the opposite side. Drop down into your pigeon pose. Walk those right toes back behind you. Find a nice long shape here. Whatever props you need to support you here in this space. Nice and lifted through the crown of the head. And starting by settling into your upright pigeon pose. Placing whatever props you need to feel nice and squared off and lifted from this space. Before going ahead and folding down over top that left shin. Taking whatever props with you. Gentle tug of the left hip back in space. Gentle press of the right hip point down toward the earth. And breathe. Breathe into the depth of that left hip. Breathe into the sensation. And exhale with any tension that's not required of you. That doesn't facilitate being in this space here in this moment. Another 2 more breaths. Walk yourself back upright. Plant the hands, tuck the back toes. Free up that left leg as you inhale, reach it up and back, 3-legged dog. Drop that right heel heavy down toward the earth. And then exhale, lower that left leg down. Downward facing dog. Roll over the toes, drop the knees. Untuck the toes, child's pose. Feel a nice lengthening through the back body as those hips sink down toward the heels. Using very little effort here into this space. Slowly start to walk the hands back up toward you. Cross the ankles, find your way onto your seat. You're going to lower all the way down onto your backs. Keeping those knees bent. And once you arrive, go ahead and bring those knees in toward the chest, nice and easy, to allow you to grab hold of the outer edges of both feet, coming into happy baby pose. Drawing those knees alongside the body. Feel free to straighten one leg at a time if that's something that feels good. Or just hang out and rock side to side. No requirement here other than for it to feel good to be here. Everything comes back in towards center. Give it one last big squeeze. And then go ahead and extend everything nice and long. Legs come nice and wide here. Allowing the lower body to roll open. Allowing the hips to release. To soften. And to maintain all of the open spaciousness that you created here in class today. Here in Shavasana is where I'm going to leave you, so feel free to linger for another 5-10 more breaths, and always feel free to explore any final poses that are calling you here in this moment. There's always that opportunity to explore a little bit of extra movement that might feel good or maybe calling you in your body as we go ahead and end today's class. As always, thank you so much for practicing with me, and I look forward to seeing y'all next time. If you enjoyed today's flow or any other classes that you have taken, please feel free to like and subscribe to my channel. Leave a comment if you enjoyed the class. I always appreciate any kind of love that y'all share. So again, I appreciate you being here with me and allowing me to be your guide. Have an awesome rest of your day.